The antique pocket watch lay shattered on the marble floor, its delicate gears scattered like fallen stars. Amelia Chen, the formidable CEO of Horizon Enterprises, stared at the family heirloom in horror before turning her ice-cold gaze to the maintenance man standing awkwardly in her office doorway. "Fix this," she demanded with a dismissive laugh, "repair it and I'll be yours." The words were meant as a cruel joke, an impossible task to dismiss the shabby single father. She never expected Jake Reynolds to accept her challenge, nor how his quiet determination would eventually crack open the walls around her heart. If you're looking for a story about second chances, unexpected connections, and the power of skilled hands to repair more than just broken objects, you found it. Like, subscribe, and settle in for a journey that might just restore your faith in new beginnings. Jake Reynolds wiped the sweat from his brow as he climbed the stairs to his modest apartment. The maintenance uniform he wore felt especially heavy today after 12 hours of fixing everything from leaky pipes to faulty wiring at Horizon Tower. At 35, his calloused hands told the story of a man who'd spent his life building and repairing, a stark contrast to the corporate executives whose offices he maintained. "Dad!" 8-year-old Lily launched herself into his arms the moment he opened the door. Her wild curls tickled his chin as he lifted her, grateful for the burst of energy her presence always gave him. "Hey, Firefly," he said, using the nickname that had stuck since she was a toddler fascinated by the tiny glowing insects. "How was school?" Mrs. Patel, their elderly neighbor who watched Lily after school, smiled from the kitchen where she was packing up her knitting. "She got an A on her science project. The one you helped her with." Pride swelled in Jake's chest. Despite everything, despite losing Emma to cancer 3 years ago, despite the financial struggles, despite working 2 jobs, Lily was thriving. That was what mattered. "The teacher said my clock was the best in the class," Lily announced, pulling him toward the dining table where her project sat. The small wooden clock with visible gears had been a weekend project, Jake teaching her the basics of clockwork mechanisms, the same skills his grandfather had taught him. "That's my girl," he said, examining her handiwork. "Your mom would be so proud." After Mrs. Patel left and dinner was finished, Jake tucked Lily into bed with a story. Only then did he allow himself to sink into the worn armchair in the living room, surrounded by the tools of his true passion. Watchmaking had been the Reynolds family tradition for generations before economic necessity had forced Jake into maintenance work. His grandfather's workbench, rescued from the family shop they'd lost, occupied the corner of the living room, illuminated by a special lamp that cast perfect light on the tiny components he worked with during his precious free hours. Tonight, he was too exhausted to pick up his tools. Tomorrow would be another long day at Horizon Tower, where he was just another invisible worker maintaining the gleaming temple of commerce. Amelia Chen's heels clicked rhythmically against the polished floor of Horizon Tower's executive level. At 38, she had climbed to the top of the corporate ladder through sheer determination and ruthless efficiency. The daughter of Chinese immigrants who had sacrificed everything for her education, Amelia had transformed herself into the perfect corporate warrior, brilliant, intimidating, and utterly alone. "The board meeting is in 10 minutes, her assistant reminded her, struggling to keep pace. "And Mr. Donovan from legal needs your signature on the merger documents before noon." Amelia nodded curtly, mentally reviewing her presentation. Horizon Enterprises was on the verge of its biggest acquisition yet, a move that would cement her legacy as CEO. Nothing could distract her from this goal, not the 80-hour workweeks, not the absence of any personal life, and certainly not the growing emptiness she refused to acknowledge. As she entered her office, her eyes immediately went to the small display case on her credenza. Inside was her most treasured possession, a gold pocket watch that had belonged to her grandfather, who had carried it from Shanghai to America with nothing but dreams. The watch represented everything Amelia had achieved and everything she had lost along the way. She opened the case to touch the watch for luck, a private ritual before important meetings. As she lifted it, the delicate chain caught on the case's edge. The watch slipped from her fingers, hitting the marble floor with a sickening crack. "No!" Amelia dropped to her knees, gathering the scattered pieces. The glass face had shattered, and worse, the intricate mechanism inside had broken apart. Her hands trembled as she tried to collect every tiny gear and spring. A knock at her open door made her look up. A man in a gray maintenance uniform stood there, toolbox in hand. "Maintenance. I'm here to fix the thermostat," he said, his voice deep and steady. Amelia rose quickly, embarrassed to be found on the floor. She brushed imaginary dust from her immaculate suit, her composure returning with practiced ease. "Come back later," she ordered. The man's eyes fell to the broken watch in her hand. Something in his expression changed, a flash of recognition, perhaps even pain. "That's a Patek Philippe from the 1920s, he said quietly. "Caliber 12 120, if I'm not mistaken." Amelia stared at him, surprised by his knowledge. "You know watches?" A small, sad smile crossed his face. "I used to be a watchmaker. Family business." For a moment, Amelia saw him, really saw him. Not just a maintenance worker, but a man with a story, with knowledge, with skilled hands that might save her grandfather's legacy. Then her walls went back up. "Well, unless you can fix this, your expertise is useless to me," she said coldly, gesturing to the broken watch. Then, with a dismissive laugh meant to end the conversation, she added, "Repair it and I'll be yours." The man didn't flinch at her mockery. Instead, he stepped forward and carefully examined the pieces in her palm without touching them. "I can fix it," he said simply. Amelia blinked, thrown off balance by his confidence. "This is a rare antique. It needs a professional." "I am a professional," he replied, not with arrogance but with quiet certainty. "Just not one you'd normally hire." Before she could respond, her assistant appeared at the door. "The board is waiting, Miss Chen." Amelia hesitated, then made a split-second decision. She carefully placed the broken watch and its pieces into the display case. "What's your name?" "Jake Reynolds." "Mr. Reynolds, if you truly think you can repair this, take it. My assistant will get your contact information." She turned to leave, then added over her shoulder, "But if you damage it further or lose even one component, I'll ensure you never work in this building again." Jake nodded, understanding the threat and the trust being reluctantly extended. "I'll treat it with the care it deserves." As Amelia strode toward the boardroom, she pushed the encounter from her mind. She had an empire to expand. She couldn't afford to dwell on broken watches or maintenance men with unexpected depths. That evening, Jake sat at his grandfather's workbench, Amelia Chen's watch carefully laid out on a soft cloth. Lily leaned against his shoulder, watching with fascination as he examined each piece through his loupe. "Is it very broken, Dad?" she asked. "It's wounded," Jake replied, using the term his grandfather had taught him. "But not beyond repair. See this mainspring? It's still intact. That's the heart of the watch." "Like our hearts?" Lily asked. Jake smiled. "Something like that. This watch has been ticking for almost 100 years. It's seen world wars, moon landings, and the birth of the internet. It deserves to keep telling time." "Who does it belong to?" "Ms. Chen. The CEO of Horizon." Lily's eyes widened. "The lady Mom used to call the Ice Queen?" Jake winced. Emma had worked as an executive assistant at Horizon before her illness, and she'd had strong opinions about Amelia Chen's leadership style. "Everyone has their reasons for being the way they are, Firefly. We don't know her story." As Lily drifted off to sleep on the couch beside him, Jake lost himself in the meticulous work of restoration. There was something meditative about watchmaking, a connection to time itself. Each component had a purpose, each gear turned another in perfect harmony. If only life could be so precisely engineered. The watch was severely damaged, but Jake had restored worse. The real challenge would be finding replacement parts for such a rare timepiece. He had some period-appropriate components saved from his grandfather's collection, but others he would need to fabricate himself. As midnight approached, Jake carefully stored the disassembled watch in his safe. Tomorrow he would begin the real work of bringing it back to life. And perhaps, in some small way, proving to himself that his family's legacy of craftsmanship wasn't lost after all. 3 weeks passed before Jake contacted Amelia. 3 weeks of late nights hunched over his workbench after Lily was asleep. 3 weeks of hunting down specialized tools and materials. 3 weeks of remembering why he had once loved watchmaking with his whole heart. When he finally called her office to arrange the return, Amelia's assistant sounded surprised. She assumed you'd either given up or stolen it, the young man admitted. She has a meeting-free hour tomorrow at 2 p.m. if you'd like to bring it then. Jake arrived at the appointed time, the repaired watch nestled in a wooden box he'd crafted specifically for it. The security guard recognized him from his maintenance work and waved him through with a curious look at his clean jeans and button-down shirt. Amelia was on a call when he entered her office, but she gestured for him to sit. Jake took the opportunity to observe her in her natural habitat. She moved with precision, her words carefully chosen, her expressions controlled. She reminded him of a watch mechanism herself, every action serving a purpose, nothing wasted. When she finally ended the call, she turned to him with skepticism written across her face. "You actually fixed it?" Jake placed the wooden box on her desk and opened it. Inside, the pocket watch gleamed, its gold case polished to a warm glow. The glass face had been replaced with period-appropriate crystal, and the hands stood at precisely 2:17. Amelia stared at it, then at him. "May I?" Jake nodded, and she carefully lifted the watch from its velvet nest. She turned it over in her hands, examining every detail. "It looks perfect," she admitted reluctantly. "But does it work?" Jake reached across the desk and gently took the watch from her. His fingers brushed against hers for a moment, warm skin against cool. He opened the case to reveal the winding mechanism and delicately turned the crown. The watch began to tick, a sound so faint yet so alive that Amelia's breath caught. Jake handed it back to her, and she held it to her ear, listening to the steady rhythm. "How?" she asked simply. "I had to fabricate several components," Jake explained. "The balance staff was broken, and 2 wool teeth were damaged beyond repair. I used period-appropriate materials where possible. The case required some restoration as well." Amelia looked at him with new eyes. "And you did this, in your spare time? Between fixing leaky faucets?" Something in her tone made Jake straighten his shoulders. "I did it because it needed to be done. Because something this beautiful and historic deserves to live." Amelia set the watch down carefully. "What do I owe you?" "Nothing." Her eyebrows rose. "Nothing? This is professional work. Expert work." Jake shrugged. "It was a pleasure to work on such a fine timepiece. Consider it a favor." "I don't accept favors, Mr. Reynolds. They create obligation. Then consider it payment for letting me reconnect with my craft." Jake stood to leave. "The watch should keep excellent time now, but I'd recommend having it serviced every 5 years. I've included care instructions in the box." Amelia stood as well, clearly uncomfortable with the imbalance he'd created. "Wait. At least let me pay for the parts, the materials." Jake paused at the door. "If you insist, you can make a donation to Westside Elementary's after-school arts program. My daughter's in their music class, and they're always short on instruments." Before she could respond, he added with the ghost of a smile, "And for the record, Miss Chen, I never expected you to be mine for fixing a watch. Some things are valuable because of what they mean, not what they're worth." As the door closed behind him, Amelia sank back into her chair, the watch ticking softly in her hand. For the first time in years, she felt off balance, as if the carefully constructed mechanism of her life had gained an unexpected gear. 2 days later, the principal of Westside Elementary called Jake during his lunch break. "Mr. Reynolds, I'm not sure if you're aware, but we've received an anonymous donation of $50,000 for our arts program. The donor specified that the money should go toward musical instruments and a part-time instructor." Jake nearly choked on his sandwich. 50,000? Yes, and the strangest thing, the note accompanying the donation mentioned something about a watch repair. "I thought you might know something about it, given your daughter's involvement in the program." Jake stared at the ceiling of the maintenance break room, a mixture of emotions washing over him. Gratitude, certainly. But also a nagging sense that Amelia Chen had deliberately overshot the mark to maintain her position of power. To ensure she owed him nothing. That evening, as he helped Lily with her homework, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "The watch keeps perfect time. Thank you. AC." Jake stared at the message, surprised she had contacted him personally. Before he could decide whether to respond, another text arrived. The donation was not charity. It was fair payment for exceptional craftsmanship. Jake smiled slightly and typed back, "The children will appreciate it." The watch was made to be treasured, not stored in a case. There was a long pause before her reply came, "My grandfather would have liked you." Something about those 6 words felt more personal than anything that had passed between them before. Jake hesitated, then wrote, "Would have liked to meet him. People who value craftsmanship are becoming rare." "Like watchmakers," came her quick response. "Exactly like watchmakers." The conversation ended there, but Jake found himself thinking about Amelia Chen as he worked on a client's vintage Omega that night. He wondered what her grandfather had been like, what stories the pocket watch could tell if it could speak. A month passed. Jake continued his maintenance work at Horizon Tower, occasionally glimpsing Amelia in the lobby or elevator. She acknowledged him with a nod when they passed, a small but significant change from her previous indifference. Then came the day when Jake was called to the executive floor to fix a persistent issue with the air conditioning in the conference room. As he worked, he overheard Amelia in heated discussion with her executive team. "The Nakamura contract is falling apart," a male voice insisted. "They're concerned about our commitment to quality in the manufacturing process. They say our presentation was all digital mock-ups and projections, no tangible proof of craftsmanship." "Mr. Nakamura is old school," another voice added. "His family business has been making precision instruments for 3 generations. He values tradition and hands-on skill. Then we find a way to demonstrate that we share those values," Amelia replied, her voice tense but controlled. "The Japanese market is essential to our expansion." Jake finished his repair and was packing up his tools when Amelia emerged from the conference room. She stopped short when she saw him. "Mr. Reynolds. I didn't realize you were here." "Just finished," he said, closing his toolbox. "The system should work properly now." She nodded, then seemed to make a sudden decision. "May I ask you something?" "It's unrelated to maintenance." "Of course. You heard our discussion?" When he nodded, she continued, "We're trying to secure a partnership with Nakamura Precision Instruments in Japan. They're hesitant because they believe we lack appreciation for traditional craftsmanship." Jake waited, sensing there was more. "Your work on my watch was exceptional," Amelia said, the words clearly difficult for her to admit. "Would you be willing to meet with Mr. Nakamura when he visits next week? Perhaps show him some of your restoration work? We would compensate you, of course." Jake considered the request. "I'm not sure how my hobby would help your corporate deal." "It's not about the watches themselves," Amelia explained. "It's about demonstrating that we value the same things Nakamura does: precision, tradition, the human touch in an increasingly automated world." Jake thought about his grandfather, who had always insisted that true craftsmanship would never go out of style, even as mass production had slowly killed their family business. "I'll do it," he said finally. "Not for Horizon, but because I believe Mr. Nakamura is right."